I saw Joker 2, Folie à Deux, and it's actually a good film. Yeah, I said it. It's actually a great film even, in my humble opinion. I saw it last weekend, and going in, I was a little bit apprehensive to say the least, because I had seen all the negative reviews, all the negative opinions online, all of the people that were walking out of the movie. I was a little bit skeptical going in. I was a little bit worried. I am a big fan of Joker 1, the first film, and being a big fan of that film, I remember when it came out, the critics weren't exactly kind to it either. I remember a lot of critics panning it, some of them going as far to say that they're not even going to see it in their review. They were actually reviewing a movie they had not even seen. I was blown away by Joker Folie à Deux, as I was by the first one. I almost feel that Joker Folie à Deux is a better film even, or better at tackling some of the same things that they tackled in Joker 1. And the fact that so many people walked out of this movie or are saying that they hated this movie really disturbs me. It disturbs my faith in humanity understanding art. But maybe many of the viewers went into this movie for the wrong reason, or for their own reasons. Maybe you wanted a badass superhero movie that focused on the origin of a supervillain. You wanted to see Joker and Harley Quinn go on a killing spree, Mickey and Mallory style. And maybe there's a sweet Batman cameo in there too. Maybe you're an edgy incel who likes the idea of the Joker, and you watch Joker 1 and Joker Folie à Deux for the violence. And you actually see this fictional character as some kind of real-life revolutionary, as many of the critics of the first film seem to come away with that sentiment. Shit, the government was even scared that the first film was going to incite riots. And as Todd Phillips tried to clarify, that's just not what these movies are. And I think Joker Folie à Deux, Joker 2, really highlights that. And almost flaunts it in the face of its audience. I think that's why so many of the reviews are saying that this movie hates its audience. I don't think that's exactly the case, but I do think it's flaunting the misconceptions of what these movies are supposed to be in the face of its audience. I don't think Joker Folie à Deux hates its audience. I think it wants better from its audience. The major difference between Joker 1 and Joker 2 isn't the critical reception, it's the amount of money that they each made at the end of the day. That's all that really matters. And Joker Folie à Deux has had a legendarily massive drop-off, with Terrifier 3 beating it on its second weekend out. And it already has a release date on HBO Max, which honestly isn't that weird for some of these superhero movies. I think the Batman they put on like a month after it came out on streaming too. Both of these films are a fantastic portrayal of living life with mental illness in a society that lacks empathy. Struggling with mental illness, dealing with feeling alienated from that society, all sort of loosely held up with the skeleton of a supervillain origin story. Joker Folie à Deux, which translates to Madness Shared by Two, is a musical, but just barely. When I recently went back and watched Joker 1, I could see many musical threads poking out of the narrative. He's watching musicals on TV, the way he dances, obviously the scene on the stairs. All of these become a greater part of the narrative in Joker Folie à Deux. Now, it's a musical, but it's not a musical in the traditional sense. There's not a lot of songs in the movie. There's maybe 5, 6 musical numbers, full musical numbers, and they're sort of used in a way that insinuate that they might not be real. They might be part of Arthur's fantasies. I'm trying not to spoil this too much. I do have a lot of opinions about this movie, so I think I'm going to do a spoiler-full review, or maybe do a watch-along commentary type beat when it comes out on streaming October 29th. Let me know in the comments if you want one or both of those. But yeah, the musical numbers grow bigger as Arthur's Joker personality seemingly starts to return. Even the musical instrumentation starts to get grander, and the set pieces start to grow larger and more intricate as the film progresses, and Arthur's shadow self comes to the surface. I want to talk about the opening of the film real quick. There's a really cool retro style cartoon bit called Me and My Shadow. Me and My Shadow also foreshadows the defense that Arthur's lawyer will use later in the film. It really highlights these themes of the shadow self, which is largely what I think this movie's about. The shadow self and learning to accept the shadow self, or maybe reject it even. Is the Joker even who Arthur really wants to be? Is that what he wants to define him? And the answer to that question is what I think ultimately pisses a lot of the audience off. It's not what they wanted it to be, and it never maybe really was in the first place. In the film, Arthur is rewarded by the prison guards by cigarettes if he makes them laugh or tells a joke. I almost get the feeling this is a metaphor for how entertainers are rewarded. Arthur's world in Arkham is very gray and very drab. The color of his world and the fantasy of his world seemingly has been abused and medicated out of him. But soon you realize there are still flashes of these colors, these fantasies, that are still slipping in around the edges. And they continue to grow as soon as he sees Harley Quinn, or Lee, as she's known in this movie. And their relationship is very different, very inversed, if you will, from what Joker and Harley Quinn's relationships are often portrayed as in other forms of media. She wants Arthur to be the Joker. She wants Arthur to be this idea. That is clearly what she is in love with, this idea. Shades of the Manson girls with Harley Quinn in this movie, the way she shows up to the trial. And shades of Ted Bundy with how Arthur, aka the Joker, chooses to defend himself at his trial. Slight spoilers there, but I want to talk about some of this stuff. Part of this film is a metaphor for how society fetishizes true crime and worships these criminals as celebrities, whether that be real serial killers or fictional comic book killer clowns. It's all entertainment. Or at least it's consumed that way by the masses. There's a TV interview with a reporter that gives off heavy Natural Born Killer vibes. The fact that the trial itself is televised. And the made-for-TV movie that exists in universe that was made about Arthur's crimes. And that Arthur is seemingly very obsessed with the quality of. Which might be my favorite running gag in the whole movie. And this movie is funny. It has many moments of dark humor and straight up humor. But it's also gut-wrenchingly emotional as well. With Arthur's reality being laid out in public in the courtroom, his joke book being read aloud, him hearing testimony about his mother's true thoughts about him and his aspirations, you can feel Arthur's paranoia seeping out of this movie. Paranoia that Harley is out to get him, that the world is out to get him. And the ending highlights that even more, I think. In the end, the Joker is more of an idea than an actual person. An idea that is going to be kept alive as long as a person is willing to inhabit it. I think it's really interesting and kind of funny there's such a backlash to this film. It reminds me a lot about Halloween Ends, another movie that I seemingly was one of the only people on the internet who liked at the time. It seems like a lot more people have come around to it since then, but it's still probably the most hated out of that trilogy. Halloween Ends was also commentary on the horror fandom being toxic. I think there are definite parallels between the two movies. And I think both works of art kind of highlight how some fandom maybe consume art for the wrong reasons. But who's to say what are the right or wrong reasons to consume art? Me? Definitely not. Which is why maybe it's perfect that both of these movies got the reactions that they got. In a way, that's almost part of the art, part of the piece itself, the reaction. The backlash is ultimately highlighting the themes of toxic fandom and artistic misinterpretation. Take that as you will. Ultimately, I think the people that didn't like this movie and walked out of it wanted it to be something that it wasn't, and it never was going to be. And all of that's kind of funny if you really think about it.